Hi, everybody. Welcome to Horsepower Heritage. I'm Maurice Merrick, and greetings to all of you listening from places like Germantown, New York, Santan Valley, Arizona, McMinnville, Oregon, St. Adèle, Quebec, Canada, Tokyo, Japan, and Abingdon, England. Thanks for joining me, and if you're a regular listener, you know that the show is typically on a bi-weekly schedule, and the next episode wasn't due out until May 3rd. But you know, what the heck, I decided to release this one as soon as possible because today's episode was recorded last Saturday live in front of the crowd at the Bring a Trailer Alumni Gathering at the Motoring Club in Los Angeles. And my guest is Randy Nonnenberg, the co-founder and president of Bring a Trailer. And in case you haven't heard of Bring a Trailer, which I think is highly unlikely, let's just say that it is the website that set the standard for buying and selling a classic or special car online. And I've been a fan and user of the site since 2011, before they were doing auctions, when it was basically just curated cars for sale around the internet. And it's been really interesting to see how they've grown. They just surpassed 100,000 auctions. So needless to say, it was an honor when I was asked to interview Randy at the event, and we had a great time. By the way, a few listeners came up to me and told me how much they enjoy the show, and I really appreciate all the kind words. And you know, it was fun to do my thing in front of an audience. It was a really different experience because, frankly, being a podcaster can be a little lonely. You know, you're putting the show out in the ether time after time, but with a live audience, there's energy in the room, and that's really rewarding. So I want to thank the staff at Bring a Trailer for all their hard work to make this event so successful, as well as the folks at Con Media for asking me to take part. And also shout out to my pal Michael at the Motoring Club. He's got a great coffee house and club space there in West LA. You can check him out at themotoringclub.com. Okay, before we get started, I want to mention one more thing. Maybe you heard my interview with car collector Myron Venris. That one was released way back on July 21st, 2021. Anyway, Myron at the time was working on an incredible book project about Japanese cars with his co-author Mark Brinker. And the book has now been published. It's a 4-volume set, and the title is A Quiet Greatness, Japan's Most Astonishing Automobiles. And I wanted to make sure I gave Myron a plug because, frankly, he deserves it. So it's now available at quietgreatness.com, and Myron tells me they've exceeded their expectations, and they've sold nearly 3/4 of the publishing run. When you see the website, you'll understand just how special this project is. Myron and Mark did everything first class, from the research all the way down to the paper quality. So get it while you can because it's going to sell out, and that might be it. I'm not sure if they're going to do a second printing, but quietgreatness.com, and there's a link in the show notes. All right, when we come back, I've got Randy Nonnenberg of Bring a Trailer, recorded live at the Motoring Club in Los Angeles. And that's coming up right after this. Hi guys, Maurice Merrick here, and I want to give you a few things to check out at modelcitizendiecast.com. First, there's the Jaguar E-Type Lightweight from 1963. That's in 1/18 scale by Auto Art. Or how about a 1956 Alfa Romeo Giulietta Sprint, also in 1/18 scale. Or if you're into Japanese supercars, there's the Nissan Skyline GTR V-Spec in 1/18 scale. You can find these and many more scale model cars at modelcitizendiecast.com. Enter promo code HERITAGE at checkout for 10% off your order. That's a special deal for my listeners. From race cars to street cars and everything in between, it's modelcitizendiecast.com because your inner child still wants to play with cars.
Randy, thanks for being here. I know you've got a couple things you want to say before we get started.
Yeah, absolutely. First off, thank you everybody for coming. Killer turnout today, cool cars, cool vibes, just like we've tried to take what's virtual on Bring a Trailer and do it in the real world. That's one of the goals of these events, and seeing people that, you know, I see every day in the comment flows, in the buying and the selling, cars that I've seen on the site start showing up. It's just really good energy. First and foremost, I want to say a big thanks to the Motoring Club. You guys are all standing in a very cool facility, and it's being put on today in a super pro way, which we appreciate. One of our local partners is Michael Rapetti here at the Motoring Club. Can you give him a big hand, please? this place is special, and we're very excited to be partnering with them, not just for this event, but more. The Scout that's over there is going to be on BAT soon, and they are feeding some of their member base's cars through BAT, which has been really successful and exciting so far. So kudos to him for putting this all together. It's not, you don't snap your fingers and this facility pops up on Olympic. It takes months and years of pulling that off. So thanks for giving us a venue, and we love being in LA and meeting with our customers.
I have to say that if you told me 10 years ago that a bunch of strangers would get together based on where they all bought their car, like from the same place, I would have said no way, right? But this speaks to the community that is Bring a Trailer and the culture. And that's really cool. And some of the things that we've learned from Bring a Trailer over the years, the AC always needs a charge. The first bid on an auction should be the year of the car, right?
Mm-hmm. You've been paying attention, it sounds like.
If you're selling a car on Bring a Trailer, don't forget to note the date code of your tires, right? Mm-hmm. Make sure you meter the paint in like 100 different places. Mm-hmm. These are things we learn on Bring a Trailer, and it's like, it's part of the culture, it's part of the vernacular. So where I want to start, Randy, is what was the seed of this idea? It was an email list, right? It
was a bit of it was a blog format website. We turned it on in 2007, which sounds like a million years ago in internet terms, but you joke about those different aspects of selling on BAT, and what you have to do is contextualize it and think about the other ways that people were selling, right? I mean, how people were selling, you joke about 100 paint readings, but people were selling with 2 blurry photos and 2 semi-true sentences about a car and throwing it on Craigslist or eBay. I mean, that's what existed. And so to raise the bar from there, how far it has come, some of the sellers that are in the room that are here today that, list 500 photos with their car, like the how far we have come and how far the internet has enabled that, but then BAT has helped foster some positivity there and thoroughness and transparency, and other websites have too. That really changes things. And some things have surfaced, the jokes you talk about, like there's some quirkiness to it, but that leads to connectedness. And if you can laugh at the same joke, that's good in a lot of ways. That's healthy in a lot of ways. Can a joke be overtold? Of course it can, but what that has done for engagement, like people used to joke about Craigslist ads, but you'd do it in your home by yourself, and there was no connectedness to it. And look at the people around. The connectedness of BAT is what really elevates that experience, I think.
Well, that's exactly why I mentioned that list, and that was by no means comprehensive, but Bring a Trailer has its own language. That's really cool. By the way, you mentioned eBay. In 2001, my daily driver was a 67 BMW 1600 Ti. Dual side draft Solexes, European model. I bought it in Hemmings Motor News like about 8 years prior. But by 2001, it was tired. It was burning oil, my compression was down, and I needed a daily. And I sold that car on eBay for $2,300. I wish I'd kept it. I wish, just for a thought experiment, I would have put it away and sold it on Bring a Trailer years later without having touched the car. Because, obviously the appreciation of those cars was like, it's incredible what they've done now. Mm-hmm. But the other thing was that eBay was a sketchy place it was a weird place to sell anything over a few $100, it felt weird. And Bring a Trailer changed that. It made people trust the internet for buying or selling a car.
Yeah, it was the main place to go. BAT in a lot of ways started because I was surfing eBay trying to find the good stuff, the stuff that felt good there, and that felt like it was a 1 in 100 exercise. So that would take me so much time to find something good. But I wanted to be able to put all those in one place, and even more than that, I wanted to be able to track them. Part of the cool part about BAT is you can track all the data and know, that car was listed 5 years ago. The car's out back. There's some Alumni cars that are here that were 5 and 6 years ago on BAT. But that listing is still there. You know what it sold for. You know who the seller was. You know that, oh, wait, that car's here and now it's a different color. Like, what's going on? You can track all that sort of thing. And that really has helped with the honesty of the marketplace, I think. And I buy cars. I don't badmouth eBay. I still buy stuff on eBay. I'm watching stuff on eBay today, right? Like, I do that. I bought my GTI on eBay a couple years ago. But it's a different level of confidence that you have in it. You got to kind of know what you're doing and know the risks associated. There's still risks even on BAT, right? It's not 100% airtight, but it's elevated it so much that it's taken a lot of that worrisome aspect out of it.
Cool. By the way, you guys, you're hearing us okay, right? This is a good volume?
Turn it up
Turn
a
it
little
up a
bit.
little? Okay. Luigi, do the honors, please. So, Randy, the website launches in 2014, right? Like,
The auctions were 2014. The site launched in 2007. That's right.
okay, yeah. So auctions launched in 2014, but it was a long road between launching the website and launching the auction. But when did you know, I've kind of hit on something here? Was there a moment?
There's multiple layers of that, right?
Yeah.
Like the first person that comments on the site that you don't know, that isn't your dad or your college buddy or somebody you planted, like that is a big moment when the public hears about it, right? So, and that was early. We turned it on in 2007, but most of those, you can still go back to them. They're all there, and there's no comments on any of them until maybe 6 months in, and then people started to share it a little bit, and then the second year, 2008, is when people started to chatter. And when there's chatter, frankly for me, and you see this in podcasts now, you see this in YouTube, you see this in social media, when you get some of that hit of adrenaline because somebody's watching and talking, it seems so elementary now with Instagram and how everybody's chattering about every thing they eat and all that sort of thing all the time, but that didn't exist when BAT was turned on, right? So that to get a commentary generated was a lot harder to do. And so when we got that, the energy started being there.
Do you remember looking at a spike in your site traffic and going, oh, wow, look at that?
I wish there were big spikes. It was more like a gradual grade up the grapevine. It wasn't like all of a sudden we were successful. It was like keep digging and keep digging and keep digging, and it'll get better and better and better.
But you knew you were onto something, so I'll confess, I guess I'm an idiot because I did not see the auctions coming. I think, raise your hand if you saw the auctions coming, or was that a surprise? Hey, now bring a trailer.
This guy said he knew it was going to happen the whole time, exactly like it played out. He knew it.
I'm glad to see that hands didn't go up because now I don't feel so dumb. But I literally I thought it was going to be more of a car media site, and kind of an enthusiast portal. I did not see the auctions coming, but it was really exciting. Tell me about getting to that point.
Well, the reason it really started, it was almost like a watchdog site. We would pick apart a seller's claims on a Renault that he says, oh, this is totally smog legal. And it's like, wait, that can't be true. Like, you're claiming things that can't be true. And that was regular. That still exists quite a bit on the internet, obviously. So that culture of scrutiny is where it really kind of started. And so auctions or classifieds or Craigslist or whatever, just looking at a listing and looking at it with a touch of monitoring for the truth was what I was about. I wasn't a great writer. I wasn't gonna write entertaining prose for everybody, but I could see an Alpha being listed, and I could say that's not a 2-liter. That's a 1750. Why are you saying it's a 2-liter, right? So that sort of, and it turns out a lot of you guys, a lot of people do that same thing when they read what a seller's talking about. They want to verify whether it's legitimate. So they'll tap their buddies. Hey, I'm not a 912 expert, but I know a guy that is, so forward it to him and see what he says about it. This is the guy that ought to talk about that. So that energy around monitoring claims being made started the scrutiny of other people's listings, and then it started with an open dialogue scrutiny of listings on BAT, which takes a thick skin, right? When you run the website and you want to say, should I turn on this microphone for people to pick on and critique the things that we are helping people list? That's hard to do. Most people don't want to do that. And back then, nobody wanted to do that. But we threw that open, and there were a lot of lessons to be learned, but it helped. It made people have a lot more confidence when we did it.
I think that's a key ingredient in the whole magic potion of this site. And so I've sold on Brinker Trailer. I haven't bought anything yet. I will.
Yet.
It is a little bit nerve-wracking, especially, once in a while, there's a commenter that you just know that guy's trying to keep the price down. He's trying to scare other potential suitors away. I'm just patient with him, right? You have to be patient if you're a seller. Mm-hmm. You do have to have a thick skin. It all comes out in the wash. The community will make it work for you, provided you're upfront You communicate well, you're responsive. That's the secret, as a seller, I think. What was the scariest moment for you? Was there a scary moment?
Well, I mean, I'm a pretty careful guy, so I wasn't one of these guys that was going to jump and borrow a bunch of money and try to do this and bet on it. We built it kind of slowly on the side before we'd make sure. But in launching auctions, one of the scariest parts was we launched auctions in 2014 we thought the only way to do it was to do it with our own cars, because asking you guys to list your baby on some new auction software platform that 75% of people didn't believe was going to be a success is a terrible recipe. So we stockpiled about 9 cars in the BAT garage, and those were the first auctions. And so we had to cut our teeth with our own vehicles, which was a risk. And that was scary. So I'd say the big scary moments for me, just personally, are jumping off to do BAT full time, right? My parents telling me that's a terrible idea. Stay in the car business, tried and true. And then launching auctions with a fair amount of resistance in the marketplace, and doing it with our own cars. And some of those sold well. Some of those snuck out too cheap, and I wish I could scoop them back up. But we had to trust in what we were building and signal that we trusted it enough. We'd do this with our own cars, and that worked out.
Remind us what the very first car, what was the first auction? Remind us what kind of car.
Yeah, first auction is July. Was anybody there? I don't know. July 2014 were 3 cars. It was an Alfa Romeo that was my own that I bought in the Netherlands and wrote about on BAT and brought back. It was a Calypso Coral Boss 302, 1970 Boss 302, which I like that car a lot. And then it was an E30 M3, a white E30 M3 that has been sold on the site 2 or 3 times since. And those are sort of BAT Hall of Fame, lot number 1, 2, and 3 on one day, on a Wednesday in July 2014.
How did that feel when it was finally done, when the car sold?
Well, the software didn't break. The biggest thing was the software didn't break. That's what we were most worried about. And we did a different I don't know if you guys know, we did a different thing. We started the bidding at the sort of hypothetical reserve, because that was our hypothesis. I hated reserves. I still kind of hate reserves. And so I was like, we're never going to do reserves. We're going to launch this thing, and we'll start the Boss 302 at 45 grand, because that's what I want to take for it, and we'll see if it bids. And it turns out that's a terrible way to run an auction. I would not recommend it. So it sits there and there's no bids all week, because nobody necessarily wants to pay you reserve immediately or be the first person to bid on your new auction platform. So I think the Boss sold with 1 bid. Like, one person bid right at the end and said, I'm going to buy this car. And it was almost like a buy it now experience. And everybody was like, oh, okay, that guy bought the car. Okay. So that was kind of funny. And then the other ones got some action, because we started the reserve a little bit low to get a little momentum. But in the end, seeking sort of market efficiency, the best way to do any true real auction is to start it at $0 or $1 and see where it goes, instead of us inserting our expertise and saying it should start here, which was not good for either momentum and excitement or the math of how it should actually play out. So we changed that around a little bit, but it was good to learn, and we've continually learned. We've changed things all along the way because we've figured stuff out along the way, but that was a big lesson.
You mentioned reserve versus no reserve. I sold a motorcycle no reserve on Bring a Trailer because I wanted to see what it would do. The reserve is a psychological thing, right? And so if it's no reserve, a lot of people would think, well, I could get a deal today. But I wanted to see what the ceiling was for the bike. So It worked out great. It sold for more than I expected it to, so I was pleased. The buyer was pleased. It was a good auction. I've also helped other people sell cars on the site that aren't, older guys who just aren't tech savvy, and they want a reserve. They're nervous. So I have to manage expectations. But you do it a couple times, and again, you're upfront with people. It's okay, and we did well, luckily. But it's a fun experience, and it's really fun when it's ticking down, right? That last 15 minutes or so is just really exhilarating. I'm not a gambler, but I imagine that's the same kind of rush, same dopamine hit, right? Raise your hand if you're a gambler. Is that a good comparison? All right, nobody's going to admit it.
I gamble on cars. I don't gamble on poker.
Randy, are you surprised by the cult following? Because it is kind of a cult, I think. Well, let me give you an example. So there's a social media component to the site, in my opinion. What's good about it, though, is unlike other social media where you can do drive-bys on people and kind of, not be on the best behavior. People on the site are on good behavior, and you guys have been able to maintain that. And I think that's fantastic. So when I say cult following or community, that's what I'm talking about. I see side conversations going on in the comments between guys, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, people want to engage. It turns out what the internet can show us is different ways that people want to connect with one another. Sometimes that's over shared affinity for a certain type of car. Sometimes that's over whatever, all the craziness that can be on social media. I wouldn't call BAT social media as much as because social media is sort of engineered to then take your data and advertise to you like all these other things. And BAT, thankfully, we've been able to build it and build a profitable model without doing any of that because the sort of underbelly of the internet is not always wonderful. So we try to stay away from that. But what you're calling a cult following, I just think people want to go to where there's a sort of civil discourse happening. And we hear all the time from some people in this room, like we've heard, like for whatever reason, the tone on BAT is different. Whether that's the type of people, whether that's the inventory, whether that's the year 2023, whether that's whatever it is. And they say, Randy, what do you attribute that to? And I attribute that to the fact that we watch the discussion, we actually pay attention, because the internet discussion and discourse as a Wild West free-for-all ends in a bad place based on the dynamics of anonymity and just people have a part of their brain that isn't always super positive towards other human beings. We all know that, right? And it can go there rapidly if you're not careful. And so fostering an engagement, but a humility in that engagement and a productivity, like it's very intentional that we flag something as not constructive. We don't just flag it as mean or critical. Like critical's okay if you do it with humility and help contribute to the discussion. So anyway, a lot of that is intentional, and I think we chose the hard road by, first of all, obsessing about that at the beginning, and then paying a stat. We have a staff of people that read every single comment on the website, right? And that's crazy expensive. Facebook can't do that. Robots can't do that in the way that a human being like yourself that reads a discussion and says, should that be on BAT? Like that's in their mind on every discussion. And that's a painful road and not the way tech usually works. So that's the reason it has been able to stay a civil place. And most other sites that are trying to do what we're doing, it's a really hard pill to swallow to actually do that and leave comments up, particularly that are critical of us. But the right thing to do is to leave it there when it's really easy to run and hide, right? Like on people's social feeds, they'll delete comments that are critical of them or whatever, and it's actually not a long game win. That's a short game win, but that's not a long game win. And so we've decided to make some decisions around discussion that we feel are important, and now it looks really easy, like, oh, we made some good decisions, but those were hard decisions to make along the way.
No, you said it better than I could, and I guess that was my point at the outset, which was that the site stands out as a place where the conversation hasn't devolved.
But it can go there rapidly, right? And
yeah,
it just needs a human oversight level that I think is important.
Randy, do you agree that there's a BAT premium?
That can happen. I mean, there can be an auction frenzy at any auction, at BAT, you'll read Pebble Beach results and you're like, why did that 240Z sell for $200,000? Like, what is happening, right? Has the whole world gone mad? Like, what's happening? And that happens, auctions, right? I mean, bidding, there can be a psychological component that is not reason-based. There can be different things that come in. And that's fine. It's a free country. You can spend your money how you want. I think that's a good freedom that we have. But BAT, I think it's sort of BAT, and we're attributed with this premium, but it's due to a higher level of confidence. So if there was a higher level of confidence on eBay or another Craigslist or another Hemmings, wherever, they'd attribute the premium there. But I think there's just for whatever reason, there's so many factors, all of them add up to a higher confidence level on BAT. And so that means people will bid a little bit more. So people say, hey, there's a premium, cars are so expensive on BAT. But it's because of that sort of cumulative effect of all of those things that we've tried to engineer in a positive way. And so do I think there is one? I mean, that's like a math question. That's not really a Randy question, right? I mean, you can run the numbers, and there's people who have gone deep on spreadsheets on do you get more on your car on BAT? And it looks like with a cursory view, you kind of do a little bit, but the reasons for that, I think, are more important than whether black or white it does or doesn't exist.
Okay, that's exactly why I asked the question, because I think, arguably, if you do run the numbers, yes, there is a BAT premium, but it's because of the vetting process, the openness, the trust you guys have built, and the number of eyeballs on the site. Nobody can compete. That's great. That's what you want.
I mean, some people can compete on eyeballs, or they can compete on one of those categories, right? I mean,
but
Amazon wanted to start Amazon auctions tomorrow doing exactly what we're doing, they'd have a lot of eyeballs, right? But would they have trust? Would they have engagement? Would they look at every comment with a human? It's just a brew of all these different factors, and we've tried to optimize as many as we can, and we do well in some categories, but less in some others, and it's been positive.
Randy, what's one thing you'd do differently?
Oh gosh, I think I would not. I would. There's lots of ways to answer that question. I think you always look at hindsight and wish you would have been more confident earlier. Like, technically, we should have launched auctions in 2011, and I waited because I was careful, and we built it ourselves instead of using off-the-shelf software. And we did it the hard way, and some of that has yielded good fruit and a product that we're really proud of now. But we could have been more aggressive earlier, and we knew that auction was a cool way to buy a special car way before we launched auctions, right? And if we had done some things in the early days a little bit faster, maybe we could have helped out all the more transactions even earlier. But it took some time, and we got it out there. But we sometimes, again, that sort of locomotive getting faster and faster model up the grade instead of the rocket ship ride, I think that's good for longevity, but it could have been even bigger earlier if we had pushed for that.
All right, let's switch gears. Let's talk about Randy's rides. Let's get some cars in here.
Cool.
The car that you sold that I wish you hadn't was the Fintail Mercedes.
Oh.
I love that car.
That was sold to LA. I don't know if that guy's here today. He came to our Peterson Museum alumni gathering with the car, and I got to see it again. It was a cool car.
Great car. But what's in your garage right now? I know you got some projects that you're working on too.
Yeah, for sure. Being close to the cars is super important to me. That's like why we're doing any of this, right? I mean, I like the internet's kind of a fun thing, but the in-person, the reason we do these events and get to be close to everybody is kind of the reason for it all for me. So to have the car here, this red car is mine. I got to drive it in the canyons in Malibu yesterday, and that's special. Renault R5, sorry for the listeners at home. And that's a special car to me. That car was submitted to be sold on BAT, and in the olden days of BAT, I got to see everything that came across the ticker tape before it went to the website, and that came in from a guy in Carson City, Nevada, and it didn't run, but it looked exactly like that. It was beautiful, but he couldn't find a guy to fix it. So I said, hey, I might know a guy that can fix it. Let's have a discussion before it goes to BAT, and I never see it again. So anyway, that was kind of fun, Wild West, early days of BAT, but I'd like to joke that my taste in cars is just like the website. It's like 1,000,000 miles wide and 6 inches deep, so I'll have an 80s French rally car, and then one of my favorite things is I just bought an 81 Toyota pickup truck, 4x4, white, blue, sport truck.
SR5.
Impossible to find, that I've been looking for forever. Very different experience than that vehicle. And then I have a 56 Chrysler 300B with a Hemi 354 in it and a push-button trans. And it's the prettiest American car of the 50s, in my opinion. The Cadillac guys don't like it when I say that, but I think it is. I've always wanted one of those, and I rallied out with my dad. Anyway, so I'm all over the map is the short answer, and I tend to buy. We've made it pretty easy to buy cars these days, but it takes more effort to sell them. So more are coming in than are going out. I need to work on the going out, and thankfully there's BAT, but it's still I need to speed up that flow to make a little more room.
With all these alumni gatherings you're doing around the country, you could easily stage cars all over the place and just have a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the gatherings environment and looking around and being like, I remember that on BAT, and like, I don't know who was out there this morning, but I'm like the guy in the road when everybody pulls up. Like, that's my favorite thing is to see a BAT car come around the corner, or oh, that car's live on BAT. That Fiat 124 Spider's live on BAT, and my staff thinks I'm a crazy person because I want to be like doing the parking lot work. But that's kind of my favorite energetic moment is being out there. I'm not good at parking cars very straight, but I'm good at knowing when they come around the corner that there are people. And so that's really fun. And that in-person dynamic is, across the country, like you mentioned now. This is our first of, I think, 6 or 7 of these events that we're doing this year. And this is a little bit of a intimate gathering. We do these also at racetracks with 300 cars, right? And so this one, based on the environment in LA and some different things we want to do with the motoring club is a little tighter than that, but it's a killer group. Hopefully you've seen that today.
Why is doing this important to you? I mean, you don't have to do this.
We don't, and most others don't and won't. It's kind of like the monitoring comments. It's like if you whiteboard it and you say, what's the ideal way to do this? For me, it's sitting here and talking to Wab in person, right? It's not just watching his listing go live every day, right? And it's frankly my staff getting BAT people to get to high five over a sand beige 911 that pulls in with a rear windshield wiper 67 S 911. I mean, that's like crazy. That car shows up, and so you high five over that car, and that has residual positive effects. And meeting people, I don't know how early BAT a bunch of you guys are, but there was a series of stories in no joke, like 2009, 2010, if any of y'all were around, about a Alfa Romeo Sprint Speciale that was bought on BAT, and then there was 10 chapters of restoring it. The dude's here. That guy's here.
Oh,
and that's crazy.
That guy. I love that story.
And so if you don't do this, like, I may swap an email. The guy lives out in the desert, right? I may swap an email with him, but for him to walk up and be like, hey, Randy, remember me? And I'm shocked, and I was like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? And he's like, oh, you're Mr. Vespa with the special. Oh,
Mr.
my goodness.
Vespa, yes.
So that sort of stuff, you can't you can do that online, you can do that social media, but I'm a very firm believer in face-to-face, even the conversation you and I are having right now. Like if you and I were doing this over Zoom, that's like a notch down. And if you and I were doing this over email, that's another notch down. So we've kind of cracked the way to make auctions work that way because it's a necessity. But the best way to do it would be if you're sitting in chairs next to each other doing all this sort of stuff. And getting to connect that way with the community component is important. Seeing Mr. Malamute over here, I get to see him. You know, he walks in and says, hey, Randy, and it fires me up every time. You know?
No, it's great. I love it. Okay, rapid fire, this or that.
Oh, this or that. I love this or that.
This or that, okay.
LA or San Francisco?
You got to make a quick rapid fire decision, okay? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
R-Code Galaxy or 64 Pontiac GTO?
I like a 66 GTO better, so Galaxy.
Okay, Galaxy. E30 M3 or AMG Evo 2?
Evo 2. Today, tomorrow, E30 M3.
Right. All right, F100 bump side or C10 square body?
Ford. I'm going Ford. I have a GMC and I like those, but I'm going Ford on those two specific specs.
Mini Cooper S, the modern, the BMW, or a Miata?
The first gen Mini Coopers I like, and then after that, that's not my car because I worked at BMW when we launched those, and I really like. A GP kit showed up today. I don't know if you saw that; those are special. But I'm in Miata. I'm in Camp Miata. You see the red Miata that showed up today, like the nicest one in the universe. he said that user, and I think it's worth noting just for a sec, that guy said, thanks for including me. I'm surprised you let a Miata into this gathering, right? And I was like, you shouldn't be surprised at all. Like, that car's like one of my favorites that showed up, right? And that guy's very humble and cool, and that's just as important as bringing a Hakosuka race car, as far as I'm concerned, right? I mean, that's a cool, meaningful thing to bring and a cool part of the community.
Right on. Randy, would it be safe to assume that scaling was a huge challenge for you, given the tremendous growth of auctions per day?
Absolutely. People in 2014 said, how many cars can you do? And we were like, we can probably do 15 a week, I bet. And then we did that, and then we were like, I don't know, maybe we can do 40 a week. And then there'll either be no cars, or there'll be no more comments, or your phone will be too busy and you won't be able to do it. And then it went to 100, and then it went to 250, and then it went to 500, and then this week it's at 760 it hit. And that's insane. That's more than 100 cars a day, and frankly, there's still a line around the block of people that want to use it, and we can do a lot better at making that faster so that will bring even more people. Right now, it's sort of a restaurant with a line about halfway down the block, but that's great because you drive by, you're like, oh, what are they doing? They must be doing it right. But it's crowded, so that's a downside. But when we improve our process, then we can slide the line a little more rapidly without losing that specialness, and then we'll have to figure out where the ceiling is. I actually am of the opinion that there's not a ceiling, but it took me years of being convinced of that because I always thought there was a ceiling.
You've surpassed 100,000 auctions now on the website. Do you still get excited when the clock ticks down? I mean, do you still look at certain auctions and get that thrill?
Oh yeah, I mean, my team jokes. I'm the most addicted of all of us. My watch list, if I pull up my BAT watch list, I mean, I've got 15 and 20 cars every week that I'm watching. You see that orange M1 launch this morning? That BMW M1,
beautiful,
unbelievable, right? I think spectating and watching stuff on BAT is as fun now as it has ever been. And that's crazy, right? With 750 cars, it's crazy that's still fun. But that's kind of my charge, right? Like if we grow, but it gets less special and nobody likes it anymore, that's not really a win. I would rather it stays static and fun and engaged and functioning well than is some rocket ship ride of volume. So it's important for me to stay very close to it so I can monitor that.
Excellent. Listen, everyone, thank you for coming today. This has been fantastic. And I want to thank Con Media for helping put this together. I want to thank the staff at Bring a Trailer who've been just fantastic, and also the folks from Race Service. My sound guy, Luigi, over there in the corner. And most of all, thank you, Randy. Everyone, a big hand for Randy Nonnenberg.
Thanks for being here. We love it. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
That's all for this episode of Horsepower Heritage. If you like what you've heard, go to buymeacoffee.com/HP Heritage, and you can contribute as little as $2 to help support the show. Or you can do a monthly donation. Don't forget to click that 5-star rating, write a review, tell your friends about the show, because all of those things help me reach more gearheads like you. I'm going to try to stick to May 3rd for the next episode release date. I'm traveling the last weekend of April, so we'll see how it goes. But in any event, you know where to find me, and I'll be back soon with more of the people and stories behind the machines. So until then, I'm Maurice Merrick. Thanks for listening.